Hi, so welcome to the SOFO Solutions Google Hangout. So this week we will be talking about ASG executives and the relationship that they should have with your group, and as far as what they need from student groups and what student groups should be um, going about with them, and what we need student groups to do and using them to, I guess, facilitate transactions. So, um, if you are joining us late and want to make sure your question gets heard, please click on live. Should be at the bottom of your screen, and then you'll be able to ask the question in real time. However, if you want to just view the video in its entirety, please just keep it on um, real time for you. And even if it's in the past, um, I'll be covering everything, and you can make sure that you hear all the necessary information. So, with that being said, I'll get started. It should take about 20 minutes to get through the topics that I want to all go through, and then I'll be here until 6:30, so an hour in total for anyone that comes in later and has any questions. So, to get started, most student groups, I guess, would describe their relationship with ASG executives as them, their executive needing to sign vouchers that you know are being used for reimbursements or payments for activities of their student group. So for A status groups, which are typically the larger groups on campus, any SAFC funded line items will need a signature. For most groups, that would be line items other than their 00 line, so their primary account line. However, some groups have gone through line transitions and have 60 lines, and for groups that have gone under that transition of line numbers being reprocessed, those 60 line items are the only lines that require um, AE signatures, and any of those, O2, O3 are all fine as far as needing your AE signature. Transactions coming out of those lines do not need those. So for B status groups, so smaller groups that are recognized by ASG, they just have a 00 and a O2 line. So only the O2 line is where transactions need an ASG signature. However, that can go about a bunch of ways, and I'll get into that later on in the Google Hangout. So for why we need you to have your voucher signed by your ASG executive is because those funds are coming from ASG, and they want to internally make sure that your group is spending them in a responsible manner, and making sure the funds that you are using that come from them are going for the goals that you displayed when requesting those funds. So those are strictly ASG policies. They are not policies that we came up with. We are just on the enforcement side, so to speak, and we hear from them if there are any changes to those policies. And so if there's ever a time where there's something that's unclear as far as whether or not a certain line item should require an ASG executive signature, just make sure you talk to your ASG exec, and he or she would most likely be a better resource to figuring out whether or not that was that is a line that they need to have signature responsibilities for. So again, we are the ones checking up on that and making sure that those transactions are getting signed by your ASG exec. However, that policy is coming strictly from ASG. So as far as how your vouchers need to be signed, obviously the treasurer or president, whoever is facilitating transactions, is the one that has to get that voucher signed, since they are responsible for all the transactions going through SOFO. So as far as getting them signed, it falls on the treasurer president. However, make sure you speak to your specific group's ASG executive to see how they want to facilitate those signatures, whether that's making a meeting and going through each receipt and in depth and then having them sign off, or whether that's the ASG executive having email communication and that's sufficient as far as detailing those, and then maybe dropping off a receipt after they're after talking to them via email, or however they want to do that. So make sure you are talking to your ASG executive throughout the quarter, so that when a transaction has to go through and possibly it's urgent, you know what the processes are for facilitating that transaction. So last week, myself and Sarah, one of the other SOFO student supervisors, talked with the GEs, so group executives of B status groups, and they talked about how what they saw is what they needed student groups to do for taking money out of their O2 lines, which is that SAFC funded line, was to first reimburse or pay a group member or company respectively from their 00 line, and then making a photocopy of those documents and showing them to the GE so that they can sign off on a transferring funds from the O2 line to the OO line. So that was a little confusing. So make sure, if you're viewing this and have any questions, to ask. I'll go through it just once again. They want the transaction to go through your 00 line so that the necessary step of getting their signature isn't interfering with reimbursing an individual or paying some company that possibly needs that payment by a certain time. And then after that transaction is posted, paying the 00 line with funds from the O2 line through a transfer that the GE would sign off on. And in order to do that, they need either the check copy that was made from that 00 line, the carbon copy of the voucher that would still be in your voucher book, and then what they have expressed concern about was groups not having the receipts, because we do require receipts to be included along with the voucher when we take it and reimburse for it, and then we keep those for the remainder of the time that for the remainder of the year, pretty much. And basically what we would ask is either group members to make a photocopy of them, scan them to their computer, and have them available to pull up when they are meeting with their GE, or if for some reason that was that action was not available for you, to ask us at the window to scan it and email it to the president or treasurer, so that they could pull that up when they are meeting with their GE. So really, there is no reason you shouldn't be able to show your GE the vouchers and the receipts that go along with that, because we are offering our scanner, our copier, and would be able to make those scans and copies so that you can appease your GE's requirements. So if you ever have any questions about that, talk to your GE. Send us an email at sofo@northwestern.edu. Come into the window, give us a call. Any of those options, and we'd be happy to clarify that process. So, as I kind of touched on before, as far as policies go, ASG executives and their signing power come from ASG, not from us, and we are just the enforcing those rules because we see all of these transactions that come in. Another example of ASG policy differing from SOFO policy is the ASG audit and the SOFO account reconciliation. So the ASG audit, we know little about at SOFO, so that would have to, that conversation, if you're confused on that, would have to take place between you and your ASG executive. But from what I could gather from our brief talk last week was, it's just checking that SAFC funded line and making sure that the correct payments have gone out of those and have come in to that line. So the SOFO account reconciliation is pretty similar, but is less, I guess, comprehensive than the ASG audit, which kind of looks at your financials as well as your group management as a whole. So the SOFO account reconciliation is obviously just the financial side of that, and is basically to ensure that everything, that all the records that we have match the records that you have, and to fulfill that, we asked you to fill out an account reconciliation form, show us the ledger that you've been keeping internally of all the transactions coming in and out of your account, and then in addition talking about making sure that those final balances for sure line up, as well as each transaction within those, to make sure that everything that's going on with your account and that we have no errors as far as the money that we have allotted to each group in the financial system. Chart string numbers could have a typo, something along those lines, and those are types of corrections that could be particularly devastating to your group if a treasurer is not keeping those records as tightly as they should be able to. So I guess going off from that, hopefully you guys have all reconciled before. It's a relatively easy process, especially for small groups, and especially if you do the work as it's being, I guess, made as far as transactions go. So make sure you're keeping up to date to avoid a stressful process at the end of the quarter, if that would happen to your group from having hundreds of transactions throughout the quarter or something along those lines. So another common question that we get is the differences between an advisor and an ASG executive. So an advisor is a full-time staff member who has to sign off on every transaction, and they do that by signing the physical receipts instead of the voucher as the ASG executive would. The advisor is, that is one of our policies and is used to ensure that your group is spending all of its funds in a sustainable and manner, and as well as in an appropriate manner. And from there, they show that they give those permissions by signing on each receipt that you guys submit. Your ASG executive is signing off on only those SAFC funded lines, and other than that is pretty similar as far as the reasons that they are signing. However, the implementing party is different. Also, advisors follow different protocols as far as what they want to do as far as how to sign your transactions, and that, again, similar to the ASG executive, please talk to them to see how they specifically would like to handle that and how much attention that they want for of your group as far as transactions go. So we are starting advisor trainings in the coming weeks, so encourage your advisor to go, and they would be able to learn more about SOFO and hopefully be able to catch any potential issues earlier on in the process when they are, any time delay would be less sensitive and possibly easier to correct, as far as a company's own records go. If they only go a month back, for example, for cash transactions. So yeah, that is all I have. So I'll be in the room here, checking to make sure, or checking if anyone asks any questions. We have none as of now, but please do ask your questions if you are coming in later in the hangout. Thank you.